Okay, this is about my fourth time trying to do this. First couple of times I tried to use OBS Studio, and for whatever reason, it had a lot of problems, especially with determining where the mouse was at. Hopefully someday they'll fix that because it's a decent program. So anyway, mainly this is video for showing differences between Everquest and World of Warcraft. Most of the people will have at least heard of World of Warcraft, if not played it, and know a lot of the characters and how they work. So I don't really need to go into a lot of explanations on that. Mainly what I'm doing here is showing Everquest. Everquest is a little bit older than World of Warcraft. A lot of the people watching this may never have played Everquest. And I mean, some may not even have heard of Everquest. But World of Warcraft was launched in, was it 2005, 2006, something like that. I don't know the exact date. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. But Everquest was released late in 1999. So it's about 5 or 6 years older. And at the time that it was launched, there were probably 20 servers, something like that. This is the server list here. These yellow ones at top. Unfortunately, it's not capturing my mouse cursor in this one. These yellow ones at top are all time-locked progression servers. You can think of them kind of like the World of Warcraft Classic is basically what they are. They have different rule sets as to how they progress through the expansions. But as you can see, the scrolling text here, there's 27 expansions with Everquest right now, with the latest one just coming out not too long ago. See, I only own 24 of them. I do not own Burning Lands, Torment of Verilius, or Claws of Vishan. The last 3 expansions, I haven't seen a need to buy them yet. I probably will, but not right at the moment. Anyway, standard servers. There's still some locked progression, like this Plains of Power locked progression one here at the top. That basically, once they reach the Plains of Power, then it stops expansion there. It doesn't go any further. Probably the first, I think the very first time lock progression server that ever came out was Ragefire. I played on it. I haven't been on there a long time. I don't know what expansion they're up to or anything else. Eventually I'll probably get in there, but because they're yellow, I don't have I haven't paid a monthly subscription, so therefore all the yellow ones I cannot access. If I had a monthly subscription, then I could access them. That's one of the good things about Everquest, is you can still play it without a subscription. It just limits you on a few things. Nothing major, but there are some limitations. So my main play server is Zechany here. And as you'll notice, there's 2 different names. That's because over the years, as the population of Everquest began to drop, they would combine servers. They combine them together, and that's what the 2 names are. That's so somebody returning, knowing that they played on, let's say they played on Saren, it was combined into Burtox. And another thing, a lot of these names of servers like Burtox, Bristlebane, Khazak Thul, Finn and Row, the Tribunal, Saren, Erolis Mar, Ferona V, Strom, they're all deities within the game. Zechany is too. Tuner, the Wraith, Prexus, Quellis. All of them are deities. So anyway, let's go into Zechany here, where my play character's at. Hopefully my mouse will be visible there. For whatever reason, it doesn't record the mouse until the game starts, I guess. All right, yep, it's not recording my mouse here either. You can see here a ranger. You can think of a ranger like a hunter. Differences are that the rangers here don't get any kind of pets. They can charm an animal, but the charm is only temporary. They use bows as their main DPS weapon. They're not too bad at melee, and they can tank somewhat, but not nearly as well as paladin or a warrior or a shadow knight. They also do not get feigned death. There's only 3 classes that get feigned death: shadow knight, necromancer, and monk. And we'll go over them in a minute. Rogue, pretty much the same. Difference is he doesn't have things like sap and things like that. They do really massive damage per second, especially at the higher end. Magician. Magician here is considerably different than you would find on World of Warcraft. Here there is a wizard, which I've got. Okay, it's not wanting to go to it. There's a wizard. The wizard here is closer to the mage on World of Warcraft. Basically pure DPS. They get some spells that are different, obviously. They get a snare spell which slows the movement of whatever they're fighting, so that they can get enough distance to nuke it without getting hit. The magicians here are considered a pet class. They have a pet. They have 4 different types of pets. Of course, you can only have one at a time. You have earth, air, water, and fire, and they each do different things. Each have pros and cons. If you're soloing, really the best pet to have is earth, because it has the most hit points, and it can also root the mobs. It procs a root. It keeps a lot of aggro so that you can nuke from a distance. And if you end up getting aggro, then the earth pet has a good chance of rooting it so that it can't reach you. Air pet has procs a stun, which is good against casters. It'll stun them and interrupt their casting. Fire pet is more or less a wizard. It nukes like crazy, has a really high damage shield, but it has very, very low hit points. Probably a quarter of the hit points of the earth pet. So it's definitely not good for tanking. Then you have water pet, which is more or less like a rogue. It'll backstab and has a fair amount of hit points, but not nearly as much. A lot of the people that are soloing these days like to use the air pet because it has a decent amount of hit points. It stuns, it can keep aggro, things like that. But if you're soloing really high-end stuff, then you need the earth pet. And they're pretty good damage per second, but they're kind of limited compared to a wizard. And then you've got the cleric. Cleric is similar, obviously, to a priest, but it's considerably different here. For one thing, they cast all the dispel buffs that are spread around in World of Warcraft, such as to get rid of a curse in World of Warcraft, you have to have a mage. Only they can remove curses. Then if it's, I believe, poison, then it's either a druid or shaman that removes it. I don't remember which, probably a druid. And if it's disease or magic, then it would be a priest. The cleric here can remove all of them. Doesn't matter if it's disease, poison, magic, curse, any of those. They can remove them. They also have the best heals in game, especially with veteran abilities, which I'll explain later. And one of the best soloing classes is the necromancer. You can think of them similar to a warlock, with some obvious differences. With the warlock in World of Warcraft, pretty much their survival is tied to the pet. You can think of a magician here is similar to the warlock over in World of Warcraft. Here, the necromancer, you can easily solo. They get a pet, and at higher ends, the pet is pretty badass, and it can tank pretty well. But if you learn the class well enough, you don't even need a pet. A necromancer's long-term DPS is almost unmatched. The wizard and the mage can do really fast DPS, but they run out of mana really quick. And the necromancer gets his own mana regen spells, so he can regen mana faster. And the mana regen spells are on par or even better than what a enchanter can cast. And I'll get to an enchanter here in a second. They can snare. They can cast dots that just do massive damage per second. They can fear mobs. They can root them. They even have a res spell. Once they get above about level 51, they can get a res spell to res allies. It costs a lot of money, but they can do it. It can save a raid, such as if you're in someplace like Plane of Sky, where you don't have many options. If they feign death and lose aggro, then they can stand up and res a cleric, and then the cleric can start resing everybody else. They can also transfer mana to other players, such as if a cleric is low on mana and you're having a hard time with killing a mob, then he can transfer his mana over to the cleric, and that way the cleric can keep the tank going. They also get feign death. The Shadow Knight, I have to show you him on another account. Shadow Knight is kind of a mix between two different types of characters. So let me switch over there, and let me pause the video here, and then I'll switch over. It's on a different account. Be right back. Okay, I'm back here with my second account. As you can see, you got a warrior here. He's level 85. There's the ability, if you look on the left-hand side, just below the characters, you'll see a grayed out button that says Upgrade Character. It's already been done on this character, so it can't be done again. Basically, you can pay a little bit of extra money, and you can take any character that's below 85 and do an upgrade, and it puts them at level 85 and gives them some decent starting gear. It's kind of a boost to get you started, because a lot of the players don't really play low end anymore. They do on the progression servers, but not here on the regular blue servers. And there's a druid. I really only use this one for buffs and porting to different locations. I probably haven't logged him on in 5 years or more. There's no real reason to, and I'll show you in a little bit why. And here's a class that doesn't exist in World of Warcraft, the Enchanter. The Enchanter was designed specifically for crowd control. Say a monk or a ranger or somebody goes out and pulls a mob, and it aggroes 2 or 3 more. In World of Warcraft, you'd basically just have to fight them. You wouldn't really have a choice. Either fight them or run. But here, there's different ways to control them. If you don't have a chanter, then you can use one of the other classes, like a wizard, necromancer, magician, cleric. All of them can cast a root spell. As the mobs are coming in, you have to root it in place, which lasts 2 to 2.5 minutes. And then the next one you root in place, and then pull the third one away, and while the other 2 are standing there rooted, they can't do anything. And you pull the other one away from it so they're not hitting you. You finish it off, and then you go to the others and finish them off in turn. And if root breaks, then you root them again and move away from him. It's called root parking. But if you have an enchanter, If you have an enchanter, then the enchanter can cast on the mobs what's called a mes spell, mesmerization. Basically, it puts them more or less into a sleep state where they can't do anything. As long as there's no damage on them, then they stay that way for however long the spell duration is. Generally, the spell duration is anywhere from 45 seconds to about 2.5 minutes, depending upon the spell you use. Then they also have some of the better, I guess you'd say, mind buffs in game. They can cast spells like Clarity and KEI, Kodiak's Endless Intellect. Had to remember what it was. It's been a while. At higher levels, things like that increases the mana regeneration rate. In Everquest, you don't use food or drink to regain mana like you do in World of Warcraft. You carry food and water, but they don't enhance your ability to regain health or mana. That's all done with other spells. You have to have food and water, and basically the character consumes it at a set rate. I always carry 300 or 400 of each, depending on where you're fighting as to how much they'll consume. If you're if you're in a wooded area, then they consume relatively small amounts. But if you're in some place that's like a desert, then you'll consume water at 2 to 3 times the normal rate, because obviously you're thirsty. Things like that. But if you run out of food and water, it'll give you messages if you're hungry and thirsty. And if you don't pick up some type of food or water, then your health and mana regeneration drops to 0, and you basically won't regain any health or mana at all. If you get hit by something, then the only way to heal is to have another player heal you, but you won't regain any mana. So you basically just sit there useless without any kind of mana to do anything with. So you have to keep food and water. So let me log this one on, and I'll show you some of the spells, show you what a lot of it's like before I switch over to my monk. Takes forever sometimes. Well, it's really slow today. Okay. I have a custom UI running here. It normally doesn't look this way, with all the spells over here and the way that all the stats are down here on the bottom. Normally, it's the only thing you see are these 3 lines here and the name, and that's it. The custom UI adds all this on. It's usually just a spell icon like these right here. Didn't have words after them. Same way with the buffs over here. The only thing you'd see is the little spell icons, like something like this up here. This is just different announcements, more or less, is all it is. I haven't logged on there in a while, so there's a few of them. Mercenaries. Basically, mercenaries were introduced a while back because of the lack of certain key classes in game. They had to introduce like little mercenaries that would follow you around and do things, like heal you or be a tank or whatever it may be. Okay, see this little guy right here? Nope, this guy. Having trouble targeting. Anyway, see the little fire guy here? That's a magician's fire pet. The water pet and air pet looks similar, but the earth pet looks a lot different. And here's his mercenary. I'm not sure, is it casting? I'm not sure what type of mercenary that is. Another mercenary. That looks like, I'm not sure if he's a shaman or not. Shamans get a spirit wolf pet like that. But some other classes can get ones that look similar to it. So I'm not sure if he's a shaman or not. Hold on, my cat wants attention. Alright, I'm back. I think I have the neediest cat in the world. So, anyway, there's an Ixar. It looks like he might be a Shadow Knight. Let me go around here. That looks like another Shadow Knight because of the skeleton pet. Yeah, that's a necromancer there. See the small pet right here. She's cast a shrink pet on it. It should be about 3 times that size. But that's a necromancer there. A dark elf. Another dark elf. And you'll notice all of the NPCs have teal colored names. You don't, like in World of Warcraft, you have them with, green, yellow, red names, things like that. And that'll tell you straight up if you get too close to one with a red name, then it's going to attack you. You don't have that here. You notice that even the NPC, the familiars and the pets have blue names. Any NPC has a blue name. Like this person or this NPC right up here. The way that you tell whether or not they're going to attack you is you target them. You can either get rid of that. You can either right click on them from a distance, and you'll see down here says regards you indifferently, which means she could care less whether or not I exist. She's neutral to everything, basically. Another mercenary there. That one looks like a cleric. You have different ones. Yeah, there's another. Yep. That's another pet for a necromancer. And see, here's the earth pet for the mages. That's the tanking pet. Okay. I'm betting he's a ranger. There's a beast lord. Because it says his warder. Only beast lords get warders. Beast lord is a combination of a warrior and a shaman. They have a little bit of spells of a shaman, but they have a little bit of the abilities of a warrior. So at higher levels with good AAs, they can actually tank pretty well. And what I mean by AAs are this. Alternate advancement points. Once you hit level 50, you can start to gain them. But you have to specifically turn it on here. You tell it how much percentage of your experience you want converted to AA. So basically you have to choose between experience and AA. And a lot of people just set it at 10% and let it go. And it'll gain a point, I don't know, every few hours or so. Of course, if you set it up to 100%, depending on what you're doing, you could get an AA every kill. Of course, that's very dependent on where you're at and what you're killing. Right now, I'm setting it to 0. I don't want to run AA yet. This character is only 92. Maximum limit right now, I believe, is 115. Eventually, I'll get there. But you can see all the stats here. Here's where you get your... this is something relatively new. Used to, they wouldn't give you this type of information. But in the last few years, I guess you'd say, they've added this in so that you can view your stats and tell what you need to do and what you don't need to do. Now we talked about mana regen. See, I got food and water here, and the only thing that does is keep me from getting thirsty and hungry, and stopping, like I said, stopping my health and mana and regen. That's all it does. Now I can forcefully eat it by right clicking on it, and you'll see down here, you take a bite out of it. Oh, that was tasty. And I can do the same thing with the water, which it's not doing. There it goes. Oh, that was refreshing. So, but you can only do that 2 or 3 times before basically you're full, and it'll say, sorry, I'm full. I can't eat or drink anymore. Anyway, stats, pretty crappy on this one. I haven't really played her that much in a while. But you have stats. But what I was talking about on hit point and mana regen, get rid of that target. See right here, you got combat mana regeneration is 176. That basically means 176 per tick, I believe, and a tick is every 6 seconds. And clairvoyance, that tells me my enhanced mana regeneration rate, heal amount, spell damage, so on. But the most important things we want to look at for the caster is the combat hit point regen and the mana regen. Endurance really only matters on melee classes like warriors and shadow knights and things like that. Same way with haste up here. That's really only important on them. Armor class obviously is similar to what it is in World of Warcraft. You have an endurance here, which if you're a melee class and you run out of endurance, then you pretty much can't hit anything. Shrouds, that's from a expansion that nobody really liked that much. Different forms of alternate currency, and then if I had a mercenary, then it would show all of his stats here, and I could add some equipment to his stats, things like that. But the important thing I want you to realize is that setting on this mount, unlike World of Warcraft, if you're sitting on a mount, you can't cast any spells. But with Everquest, you can. See, I could sit here like this. I could cast like improved invisibility on myself all day long directly on my mount without ever leaving it. And sitting on the mount is the same as sitting down on the ground. Here, to regen mana faster, you have to sit. So if you can see that my combat mana regen is 176. So if I drop the lion, it drops to 141. But if I sit down, it goes back up to 176. And in dungeons, you can't have mounts. So this is what you have to do. You stand up, cast your spells. You have to wait a few seconds. If you sit down too fast, then the mob will immediately aggro you and beat on you. So you have to cast your spells, wait a second or two, sit down to med. And then when you need to cast spells again, stand up, cast your spells, wait a few seconds, sit back down. You get the hang of it pretty quick. If you sit down too fast, you die a lot. You learn quickly not to do that. But what I was talking about with the mana regen spells, this voice of forethought right here is one of them. This is one of the higher end ones. See, voice of forethought right there. So if I were to remove it, watch the combat mana regen. I'm not going to stand, but I'm just going to remove it. See, if I stand, it's 141, setting is 176. If I remove it, it drops to 119. I stand up, it's 84. So it affects it considerably. And I recast it on myself. Now we're back up to 141. It also increases intelligence and wisdom. Set down is 176. See, I used a little bit of mana, and I set down, and watch how fast it regens. It goes up pretty fast. It's almost back to 100%. Okay, but the different spells, see, here's another big difference. On World of Warcraft, you can have toolbars down here, and you can have 100 different spells on them. You can put every spell down there you can think of to do anything you want at any time. That's not the way here. Here you get a maximum of 14 spells. You normally start out with only 8. So that would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically anything from Voice of Forethought up is what you originally start out with. So going into a situation, you have to make a decision on what spells you need when you go into that situation. Now you can change mid-battle. Here you're not limited to being out of combat to change things. You can be in the middle of a raid and they're killing one of the big bosses, and you can change out spells all day long. Clerics can res people during the battle here. They're not limited like World of Warcraft, where you have to be out of battle to res someone. But here's some of the different spells. Of the mana regen spells. These are haste spells that increase the attack rate of your allies. These boons here in the Night's Dark Terror, Trickster's Augmentation, they basically change the appearance of the person, but also it enhances their ability to taunt, gives them more aggro, so they can keep aggro better. Recurring Amnesia, Memory Flux, Blanket of Forgetfulness, that removes aggro from mobs. So if you mez one and it's really mad at you, you can hit it with Recurring Amnesia, which basically hits an amnesia spell every 6 seconds for 24 seconds. Or in this case 42, because I have an AA that enhances it a bit. So every 6 seconds it'll hit it and try to remove the hate that it has for me. That way a warrior can easily, taunt it and keep aggro on it. And then you have bind affinity. Yeah, that's another thing. With World of Warcraft, the only places that you can bind yourself more or less is in an inn somewhere, an innkeeper. And if you use your Hearthstone, it's either once per hour or once every 30 minutes, obviously, depending on which version you're playing. And it's always back to that same inn. Here, it's different. I can take this Bind Affinity spell right here, and I can bind myself right where I stand. Now, I'm bound to this spot right where I'm standing. So if I go out in the world and I fight something and I die, I will reappear right where I'm standing right now. I can bind myself in almost any zone. Many dungeons you can't bind yourself in. It's not allowed. And some outdoor zones you can't. But for the most part, she can bind herself anywhere. Like if I go into a zone where I'm going to, it's really dangerous and it's a good possibility I'm going to die, then I'll bind myself close to the zone line and then run out there into the group. That way if I die and we don't have somebody to res, I can easily run back. And that's another big difference. Well, let me continue on with that thought first. Also, there is the spell Gate. Gate takes me back to my bind spot, which will be right where I'm standing now. So if I'm out in the world somewhere and I decide I want to get back to a plane of knowledge quickly, then I use the Gate spell, and it takes me here. And the nice thing is that the recast time on the Gate spell is, I think, 30 seconds or something like that. So basically every 30 seconds I can use that. I'm not limited like it is with a Hearthstone on World of Warcraft. Now back to what I was thinking of earlier is experience. See, this is my experience to my next level. I'm 33.3% in. That's alternate advancement, 19%. Here, well, in World of Warcraft, if you die, the only penalty you get is damage to your equipment. Here, you die, you lose experience. And the amount of experience you lose Depends on what level mob you're fighting, what zone you're in. It depends on a lot of factors, but it's different. And the only ways to regain some of that experience is through a res. Clerics can res for a maximum of 96% with a normal res. I think that's a level, was it 41 spell? 40 spell? Something like that. Every few levels they get a different percentage of res as they level up. At like, I don't know, I want to say like level 7 or 8, they get the first one, which is a 0% res. It basically just brings you back to your corpse is all it does. And then there's 10%, and there's 25%, and there's 50, and then 90, and then 96. Now, clerics do get an alternate advancement ability that allows them to do a 100% res. But they can only cast that spell like once a day or something like that. So you have to be very picky in when you cast that. So let's say I just leveled up to level 92. I was in a group and I just hit level 92. And I didn't even have any blue or orange on my experience bar at all. If I die, then it takes me back to level 91. Probably about 95% or so. 90-95%, depends. A cleric can res me at 96%, but that probably won't be enough to get me back up to 92. It'll probably get me up to like 99%, and I'll have to kill a little bit more to get back into 92. So it is possible to de-level here by dying. I watched somebody one day, they got up on one of these tall towers, like way up there. You jump off that and you're going to die, just like in World of Warcraft. And for whatever reason, he was getting up there. He must have bound himself up there so that every time he died, he would go right back up there again. And he just kept jumping off and jumping off and jumping off until he went from like level 105 down to like level 50 or something like that. I mean, why he was de-leveling himself, I don't know. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he got into somebody's account that he hated and decided to de-level the hell out of the guy. But you only have a certain amount of time to get a res. If you're staying in-game, still playing, you have like 3 hours to get a res before the res timer runs out and you can no longer res your character. If you log out of this character and into another one, as long as this account is online, that timer continues to go down. You've got two different timers. You've got the res timer, and then you've got a corpse decay timer. The corpse decay timer is, I think, 7 days, meaning that the corpse will vanish after 7 days, whether it's been resed or not. And then you have the res timer, as long as this character is online, the res timer runs, and you have 3 hours. The corpse decay timer runs no matter what, whether you're online or offline, doesn't matter. It's 7 days, 7 actual days. And if it disappears, there used to be a way to get it back, but I'm not sure if that's still in game. Oops, I run faster, I guess, if I'm on my lion. That's another thing is run speeds. You have spells here that enhance run speeds. Yep, Emissary of Shadow Rest. If a corpse decays over the 7 days, you should be able to go into this zone, and there's guys in there that can summon your corpse, maybe. If the corpse gets too old, it may not be able to summon it. Okay, run speeds. I love levitation. See, I've got group perfected levitation, which is permanent, which I cast with an AA spell. Basically, there's no flying mounts here, but you get levitation. And this particular levitation is permanent unless you die. Then you have to recast it. But that allows you to do different things like this here, where you can get on top of walls and go over things. See, I could end up on top of that if I wanted to. By getting up here, I could climb up the walls, that little vertical part there, and I could run across and hit that steeple right there and get all the way up on top of that if I wanted to. It's kind of fun to see what you can get on top of. But anyway, let me get back to what I was saying. I think I'm just about done with this particular character. I'm going to switch over to my monk, explain a little bit on that, and show the differences between the Pandarian monks and the monks here. The monks here are so much more versatile, in my opinion. So let me pause here and let me switch over. Okay, here we are back. This is my third account. Obviously a bard. Bard basically plays instruments and sings songs, and can really be a boon to groups. Those songs give some really good buffs. I've never really played one that much, so I don't really know a whole lot about them. There's a Beast Lord, another one that I upgraded the character on. I haven't really played her that much either, but I've seen them played quite a bit. There's a Shadow Knight. Now, Paladin, of course, there's a Paladin in World of Warcraft. I don't really know that much about them. I've never played one in World of Warcraft. But here, a Paladin is part cleric, part warrior. So they can cast some lower level cleric spells for heals and buffs, things like that, and they can even res at higher levels. But not nearly as good as a cleric, or not nearly as good as a cleric, obviously. And of course, they don't have all the defensive skills and everything else of a warrior, but they do a pretty good job at tanking. Shadow Knight here is a mixture between a warrior and a necromancer. They get some of the spells of a necromancer, and just like a paladin, they can tank decent, but they don't have nearly the defensive and capabilities of a warrior to stand toe-to-toe with a mob. A lot of people that play Shadow Knights would probably disagree with that, but it's the truth. On the higher end, the warriors are almost unmatched in their abilities to go toe-to-toe with mobs because of all their damage mitigation and everything else. At the lower end, the first, 3 or 4 expansions or so, the Shadow Knights were really one of the best tanking classes. A warrior only has taunt as an ability to grab the attention of the mob and keep it off the group. But the taunt can be resisted, especially if the mob you're fighting is above your level. The higher above your level it is, the more it'll be resisted, kind of like a spell. And if it's resisted, obviously it's going to ignore him and go with the wizard or whoever it is that's nuking him, or especially the cleric. They almost always go for the cleric first, just like they do in World of Warcraft. The nice thing about the Shadow Knight is he can cast spells that generate a huge amount of threat. They have no problems keeping aggro whatsoever. You have a good Shadow Knight tanking a cleric and chanter, a wizard. They can cast spells all day long and never pull aggro off of him. Of course, that's assuming that they're good and know how to play. And here's my favorite so far, is the monk. They're masters at hand-to-hand combat, even without weapons. Of course, good weapons enhance their abilities. So I'll show you a little bit about it. See, the upgrade character over there is green. I never upgraded him. I played him straight through to where he's at. Okay. In the guild lobby here. There's another necromancer. Okay, what I was saying earlier about bind points. This is the guild lobby. It's a relatively small zone, and it's basically it's off of Plane of Knowledge. There's an entrance, Plane of Knowledge, to come in here. Plane of Knowledge, Plane of Tranquility, and the guild lobby and the guild halls are all non-combat zones. You can't do any kind of combat in them. You can't attack anything. You can't cast any offensive spells of any kind. And when you're in here in any one of these zones, your buff timers are suspended. That's another thing as well, is that World of Warcraft, if you walk away from the keyboard for more than 5-10 minutes, it logs you off. There's pretty much no way to prevent that. Here, that doesn't happen. I can stand right here in this spot, unmoving, for the next week, and it will not log me off. I don't even really have to worry about being disconnected either. Like in World of Warcraft, if you get the slightest disconnect, such as the internet goes down for even a split second, you get disconnected. And if you're, on a bat flying between 2 flight points and you get disconnected, you log back in, you fall to your death because the bat isn't there anymore. Here you don't have the flying bats or flying mounts or anything like that. There's another way that they do it. But right up here in the corner, it's kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can get to a dark background so that you can see it. You can see it a little bit right there. You see that green line right there. You got the 83 ms, that's 83 milliseconds. That's my ping time between this machine and the server. And you see this 100%, you see it drop occasionally. That's little glitches in the network connection. If we were in World of Warcraft, it would disconnect every time that you see that drop below 100%. That would have been an interruption, and it would have disconnected you. Here in Everquest, if you get disconnected, then that starts counting down. See, it drops a little bit and comes back up. But it'll start dropping, and this line will start slowly going down. And if it reaches 0, then it disconnects you. But if it reconnects before that line hits 0, then it resyncs everything and it catches up, and there's no problems. You keep right on going. You may have a lag spike, like if I'm running along here and it starts to disconnect right here, and I run over here and I realize it's starting to disconnect. When it reconnects again, I'll be standing back over here where it started to disconnect. So that's only one of the kind of irritating things, but it's better than being disconnected. Okay. What was I saying before that? I don't remember. Anyway, I'm getting too old. Feign death. In World of Warcraft, like I said before, only hunters get it. Here it's monks, which get it as a skill, and Shadow Knights and Necromancers, which have it as a spell. With their spells, basically, you're not working any kind of skill. Here on a monk, it's a skill, and if your skill is below 100, then it fails quite often. And the way that it fails is it'll give you a message that, such and such has fallen to the ground. That means your feigned death failed, and you have to stand back up. And there's a timer, a countdown timer, before you can do it again. So if you're getting hit hard enough, you're either going to die before that timer, refresh timer runs out, or you need to run in circles to keep from getting hit as much until it resets and you can feign death again. There's lots of different ways to do it. But with the hunter feign death, if you feign death, then you get a little timer that runs up here. And when that timer reaches 0, if you don't come out of the feign death before then it kills you. You die completely. Here, that doesn't work. I can set right here, hit feign death, and see there was no message, so it was a successful feign death, and I can stay like that for the next week if I want to. I could run into a really dangerous zone if I'm looking for a particular mob. Say if I want to run into Plane of Fear and I'm looking to see when Khazak Thul spawns, which is an evil god. He's needed for several quests. I could run in there to the area where he spawns at, run in there like this, feign death, and lay there until he respawns, which could be anywhere from 3 to 7 days, I think it is. I don't remember the timers on the low-end gods like that. But I could stay just like that and move my camera back like this so that I can see around, wait for him to spawn, and as soon as he spawns, stand up and either go kill him or call in all my friends to come in and help kill him. With him, you would need to help killing because he does a death touch. Okay, let's see. This here is an aggro meter. Extended target window. If you get aggro from more than one mob, then it starts listing them out here. And it also shows their health so that you know which mob to kill next. If you have a big raid or something and you got this completely full of mobs, then you start showing their health. You can look at the one that's dropping the most, which you can set up here at top. You can set them different. So you can set it to the group's tank or the group target's tank, and the raid target, raid assist 1, so on, puller, and that way that particular mob will always be the very first one up here so that you know which one to attack next. And when you're in a group, you can set group roles. I'm not in a group, so I can't do group roles. It doesn't show up. But if I was grouped, then I could do this, and it would say group role, or if they're the group members listed down here, I could right-click on them and say group role and set them as tank or group assist, puller, so on. And that matters for the mercenaries. Like if I have a healer mercenary and I'm in a group and I'm not set a role, if I run out to pull something, then that mercenary follows me. And when I hit something to pull it, if I go back and it's more than one and I have to feign death, then they'll immediately attack my mercenary and kill him. So we have to set like me as a puller, and that tells the mercenary not to follow me when I run out here to pull. It stays near the group. Okay, that's a pain in the ass. Alright, so Everquest is also designed as a first person. You can do follow cam like that. You can also hit F9 to do different camera angles. Like that is you move the camera around, you can keep it at a certain angle while you run. Or you can do it like this where it's, it's different types of camera angles. See, and that's kind of a follow cam. That could get kind of confusing the way it switches around that way. But then you go back to first person, that's just what they're used to there. This game was designed with this in mind. Alright, so I'm going to stop this video. It's getting close to an hour on this video. Didn't really expect it to go that long. But there's so much to describe, it's hard to keep it down. I'll start a second video and show a little bit of the gameplay so that you understand how things work. I'll run into some of the lower end dungeons so you see what the actual old world dungeons look like. They're pretty interesting. So let me get to the point and then I'll start back up again.